What does Israel want? What do they want from the Palestinians? And why do they have so much hate?
Look, it's a settler colonial state. And ever since the inception of Israel to today, the colonizers who colonized that land always knew that there was an indigenous Arab population that they wanted to kill or expel. And that's still the goal. So they can have an ethno-supremacist state.
Can you be a Muslim and live in Israel?
There's so many discriminatory laws. Basically, it's an apartheid state for non-Jews. Netanyahu reflects the true face of Israel, just like Trump reflects the true face of this country.
I am a Riva, and I was taught how to pray Salah.
That means every single time I pray,
the person who told me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support someone like me in learning Salah,
then sponsor 10 people for just £100.
remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, said,
Charity does not decrease wealth. Click the button and donate now.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. If you guys didn't already know, Abby Martin is an amazing lady that's been advocating for Palestine for many, many years, way before the latest genocide began in 2023. Her work documenting the ugly reality of the oppression the Israelis have carried out against the Palestinians has been second to none and has been vital in exposing the truth of the situation. Abby has been hosted by Joe Rogan on his platform for this very reason, on a number of occasions. I've captured some segments of Abby on the Joe Rogan podcast, detailing the ethno-supremacy practiced by the Israeli regime in the West Bank, Gaza, Jerusalem and Israel itself, against Palestinians, non-Jews, Arabs and Muslims. Let's watch the first clip.
I didn't even know what the hell was going on until I went to Palestine and saw how crazy it was. But
What is it like? Give me your thoughts on your
So
experience.
everyone mistakenly thinks that Hamas controls Palestine. That's not true at all. There's 3 different areas that were drawn up with the original partition. It's the West Bank, which is totally under military rule by Israel. And then there's the Gaza Strip, which is like the open air prison, which they bomb the shit out of like every couple of years, and Hamas controls that area. And then there's Jerusalem, which is an international city center that both Arabs and Jews live in. But the West Bank has been occupied militarily since 1967, and it's complete martial law. There's checkpoints. All political parties are illegal. You can't, having a gun is like the least of it. You can't hold a flag. You can't belong to a political party. You literally can't do shit if you're a Palestinian. You just have to sit there and submit. And even if you share a photo of someone who was like killed by an Israeli soldier, you go to jail, and you go to jail for the amount of like months that,
What?
Yeah, based on the shares and likes of the photo, they'll penalize you more and put you in prison for longer and longer. I mean, I'll just tell you one story.
If you put a photo on social media, like you put
of someone
something
who
on Facebook,
died, and they'll be like, you're sharing a martyr and inciting people to like commit suicide, like on behalf of Palestinians, you go to jail, and they put them in jail. There's 99.7% conviction rate. Kids are tortured. Kids are in prison. It is absolutely insane. The first day that we were there, we went to a funeral of some guy, some farmer who was shot by Israeli forces, and we went to the funeral. It was horrible. You know, all the women are wailing and crying, and as we're leaving, the Israeli forces had set up a checkpoint right outside of this dude's house and started tear gassing and shooting rubber bullets like at people who were simply attending the funeral, just to punish people for attending the funeral. We went to another girl's house named Aya, who got shot in the vagina for peacefully protesting at some protest, and they shot 200 people that day. One guy next to her died. Another guy was paralyzed. They have a policy called shoot to cripple, where they shoot guys in the dicks. Yeah. Oh, it is fucking nuts, man. The West Bank is no joke. I thought that I was going to die several times. We were at this checkpoint going through Colonial, and there was this old man kind of like walking a little bit toward the checkpoint. They started shooting at him. Bullets are ricocheting off the thing. And you know, my partner, Mike, who was an invading soldier of Iraq, was just like, we're going to die. Like, they're shooting this guy. There's bullets ricocheting. It was absolutely insane. And as we go through the checkpoint, the soldier's like, hey, stay safe out there. And I was like, yeah, when you guys are arbitrarily shooting people. And the person who was driving us had just told us that a couple months prior to that, some woman, Palestinian woman, because you can't go to Jerusalem. Like, if you're Palestinian, there's like barely any Palestinians who are even allowed to go pray at the most holy site, the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. You can't go to the beach. You're just completely constricted in a prison, and you can't travel. And he was just telling us that months before we went through this checkpoint, someone was going through the checkpoint because they got a permit to go into Jerusalem, which is like a lifetime golden ticket, like Willy Wonka. And they're walking, and she just got executed. And then
What?
Yeah, she just got executed, and she was bleeding out at this checkpoint, and her little brother tried to help her, and they shot him too. And they're like hiding the video of this.
Why
And this
they
is just
shoot her?
because they fucking hate Palestinians, and Palestinians are animals to these people. It's sick, man. It's sick. It's really, really sick, Joe. And I couldn't even get into Gaza. We were banned from going into this territory because I was told by the Israeli government that I was a propagandist and that I was like an enemy agent, and so I wasn't allowed to go into Gaza. So Gaza's hell, but the West Bank is under martial law and everything's illegal and you can't do a goddamn thing. Hamas is controlling this one area for a reason because it was built as this surplus when Israel was created. Millions of refugees were put miles away from the homes that they were ethnically cleansed from and put into refugee camps in Gaza. And when the Israeli military wanted more and more land, by the way, all settlements in Israel are illegal. All of them are illegal in the West Bank, but they just keep creating more and more and more. And we would go to these villages of just Arab people living in these villages, and the settlers will come. You have to be a fanatical asshole to move from California to an Arab village in Palestine and set up a goddamn tractor trailer and just live on top of their home. And they can have them, giant machine guns. They can firebomb you. They can shoot you. They can beat you up. They're protected by the state. You can go with a tractor trailer, set up a home. The state immediately runs a water line, a power line, and a military outpost to protect you. And the Arabs are just sitting there waiting to get killed or attacked. It's absolutely insane. And the way home demolitions work are insane too, because like they either deliver a piece of paper with a rock over it and they're like, here, if you find it, good for you, and if you don't, then you're screwed. And that's if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, your home will be invaded by settlers and you'll be forced out of your home. There's videos of this all over the internet of like groups of settlers going and literally taking over Arabs' homes, and then they just are forced out. It's crazy, man. It's completely way crazier than I ever could have imagined.
How long were you over there for?
A month.
Whoa.
Yeah, you cannot go to areas. Like, Israeli soldiers were arbitrarily set up checkpoints and just shut you out of your neighborhood and force you to walk 3 miles to your home. Like, they can do whatever they want because you are under martial law.
This segment was recorded over 8 years ago in April 2017, which is very significant as it smashes the false narrative that Israel's aggression began on October 7th, 2023. Abby has personal experience visiting Palestine many times, which currently consists of leftover parts such as Gaza, the West Bank and Jerusalem, and previously consisted of all of what is known today as Israel before the Palestinians were colonized. Abby revealed how the West Bank has been under illegal Israeli occupation and military rule over their civilian population since 1967. As she said, the indigenous Palestinian people cannot even vote, wave flags, go to the beach, or even share pictures of their martyrs online that were killed by Israeli soldiers. I'm pretty well versed on the situation over there, but even I was shocked to hear that posting a photo of a murdered family member results in a jail sentence, and the harshness of that sentence can increase depending on how many shares, views, and likes that post receives. Talk about a draconian regime and a completely unjust legal system, but we wouldn't expect anything less from the Israelis, which is evident from how Abby described how Israel has a 99.7% conviction rate, where even kids are imprisoned and tortured. No matter what you think of Abby, she is one brave girl. Actually going to the West Bank, attending the funerals of Palestinians killed by Israeli forces, and literally dodging bullets from the IDF is so very admirable and courageous, especially since Abby herself thought she could have been killed at any moment. Again, I was taken aback when she said the Israeli occupation had set up checkpoints outside of a funeral ceremony and proceeded to shoot at attendees and spray them with tear gas. I had the same reaction when she spoke about how the IDF deliberately shot young men and women in their private parts with the intention to maim them for life. Even Joe Rogan was understandably visibly stunned by these unbelievable acts of cruelty. Abby recalled how in the month she was over there, 200 people were shot in the West Bank, including elderly people, women and children, and that's just the ones she knew about. Just imagine what that number is in all the Palestinian territories added up in just one short month. This is literally terrorism. Again, all of this occurred a few years back before October 7th. Imagine the war crimes that have taken place over the last 8 decades that have been hidden from the world. Abby described how the IDF committed senseless atrocities on camera and then just simply got rid of the evidence, much like they do in the modern era. Abby correctly described this as a sick, racist and hateful culture. Despite being banned from Gaza for her brilliant and honest journalism, Abby was still able to share important information regarding how Gaza has been used as a refugee surplus area for decades now. This is exactly why the population fluctuates. So when you hear an Israeli propagandist ask, why is the population growing if there's ethnic cleansing taking place? The answer is because the Israelis keep pushing more and more Arabs into Gaza from other surrounding areas. Like Abby said, all of Israel's settlements are built illegally on Palestinian land that does not belong to them. Yet European and American Jewish extremists continue to migrate to Israel to steal the homes of Palestinians at gunpoint, which is still happening as we speak. Let's watch the next clip.
What does Israel want? Like, as a state, like, what do they want from the Palestinians? What do they expect? They expect to just keep the status quo, keep business going as usual, never let those people live a normal life? Like, what do they want? And why do they have so much hate? And why haven't the Israeli people, like, seen the horrors of this and rebelled?
Well, to be a leftist in Israel, it's difficult, and to be an anti-Zionist, it's even more difficult because you're rejecting your entire identity,
your religion as well
everything.
as your political identity.
But look, it's a settler colonial state, just like a lot of other things in the past, but this is different because it's ongoing. And ever since the inception of Israel to today, the colonizers who colonized that land always knew that there was an indigenous Arab population that they wanted to kill or expel. And that's still the goal. Like from Ben Gurion himself, the original, prime minister of Israel. I mean, he said there's so many Arabs here, we need to expel them and take their places. So it was never a land without a people and a people without a land. It was always overrun with Arabs, and they've always just wanted to expel the indigenous population so they can have an ethno-supremacist state. And that's really what it is. And that's...
So can you be, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you be a Muslim and live in Israel? Can you be a Muslim and live in Jerusalem?
Yeah, but there's so many discriminatory laws that basically it's an apartheid state for non-Jews.
Like in what way? Like what are the laws?
Just in the roads. Like there's settler-only roads compared to Palestinian.
Settler only?
Yeah, compared to Palestinian roads. People have different license plates. You have different ID cards.
So if you are a person
segregated schools, it's so segregated and hostile, and you're so indoctrinated from an early age to basically hate these people and think of them as the other. The genocidal rhetoric is very apparent, and it's very open. I didn't know the Palestine side of the story until I was an adult, which really should say something about our education system and our media when you completely obfuscate an entire reality and are only told one side. But before I went there, I had a conception of what it was, but once you go, you really see how much worse it is. I was in Jerusalem. I spoke to people from all backgrounds, and basically they just were very, very readily comfortable to tell me very crazy genocidal things on camera.
Jews shouldn't marry Arabs.
Shouldn't marry Arabs. Why do you feel strongly about that?
Because Jews is a special nation that God gave it to the Jews.
I think Israelis have to take over. They have to kick them away. Go back to Arab countries.
Okay.
The Arabs made their name and memory be liberated, and all will be fine. They'll be in their villages, and we'll be here.
You should also kick out the family, because it all begins with the chinuch, the kids. It does, it's families. If they're going to throw rockets, we're going to throw one big one and done.
There's only one way, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it.
We need to
The
kill
Arabs
the
make
Arabs.
a terrorist attack.
We need to kill
the
Arabs.
Arabs. She's laughing.
Okay.
My friend's all right, have a good day.
We'll talk about this later.
I
he
mean,
says.
look, this is reflected in polls when you look at Israeli society. It started off as kind of a socialist project with the kibbutzes, and now it's just turned into a fascist, supremacist state where Netanyahu reflects the true face of Israel, just like Trump reflects the true face of this country. We have to fight our government to stop endorsing these massacres and atrocities.
Don't you think it's a bit different in Israel, and they're more unified because of the fact that mandatory military service exists?
Why are so many Americans going over there, 17-year-olds, and joining the IDF?
Right.
I mean, how bizarre is that? What kind of mentality do you have to move from a comfortable suburb in Philadelphia to go move on top of an Arab village and harass these people?
Is it Jewish people that are doing this?
Yes. That's why it's so sad that so many Palestinians can't ever go to Jerusalem, which is one of their holiest sites is there, and they're banned because, again, they're banned from everything. So
if you're a Palestinian and you live in Gaza, you're just stuck.
You're stuck forever. That's why you have this mantra they want to die. They raise their kids to be suicide bombers. No, when you're in Gaza, you are born dead. You don't have a life. So that's why these people are giving up their lives to send a message to us. That's why they're doing this. That's the only reason they're doing this, is to send a message to us. Help us. The Israeli lobby and the Stand With Us and all these people have said, you're portraying us as really different than we really are, because they like to portray themselves as this peaceful, loving, democratic nation. And they're like, Palestinians will say the same thing about us. Not true. I was driving around in settler plates in a car that looked like I was a colonial settler. I did not hear one person say anything remotely genocidal about Jewish people.
This particular segment featuring Abby is slightly more recent, from over 7 years ago in June 2018, but again, still way before October 7, 2023. Joe posed some valid questions. What do the Israelis actually want? And why do they hate the Palestinians so much? And why are there no Israelis calling out what's happening to the Palestinians? Abby was correct when she said anti-Zionist Israelis are a very small minority that find it quite difficult to voice their concerns. And as she pointed out, the real problem is that the majority of Israelis, as well as their culture, reflect the same genocidal ideals as their war criminal leader Benjamin Netanyahu. As Abby stated, Israel is a settler colonial state that thrives on ethno-supremacy on a mission to wipe out the indigenous Palestinians once and for all. Like she said, this toxic ideology is drummed into Israelis from a very young age. That's why when you see them on social media, they come across as crass, entitled, and lacking social awareness in how the rest of the world views their inhumane actions and arrogant attitudes. Joe Rogan seemed perplexed when Abby told him that Muslims and non-Jews in general live under apartheid conditions Christians in Israel, to the point where they're not even allowed to drive on the same roads or attend the same schools. Imagine living in a country, your country, that has been taken over by armed extremists, and you're segregated to the point where even your license plate and personal ID identify you as a second or third class citizen to your oppressor. Abby made a great point when she said, growing up in America, and we can extend that to the West as a whole, we're only told one side of the story through our education system and through the media. Two industries that are owned by pro-Israel conglomerates that fed us the narrative that the Israelis are the good guys, when in reality the opposite is true. As Abby said, she only became wise to the plight of the Palestinians as an adult, but after going there and seeing it for herself, it's much worse than what we in the West could ever conceive it to be. That is eye-opening, because what we've seen online has been tragic and brutal, but the reality is it's much worse, which is why Israel does not allow Western journalists in to report on what's really happening over there. It was so very crucial that Abby was able to capture video evidence of the Israeli public's genocidal rhetoric in the streets of Jerusalem, where they openly incriminated themselves by making racist statements, as well as calling for Palestinians to be killed, including families and innocent children, as always. Joe was able to attribute the violent nationalist culture in Israel to their citizens being forced to serve in the IDF, which Abby agreed with, but she made a valid point when she said there are Jewish extremists born and raised in the West that are actively travelling to Israel to join the IDF and execute Palestinians. I would point to Zionism as being the poisonous ideology that drives such people, Jewish and non-Jewish, to partake in prospering from human suffering. Like Abby said, people in the West who disagree with this mistreatment of our fellow human beings need to actively oppose our governments through legal means, with the goal of convincing them to no longer support these one-sided atrocities. Let's watch the last clip.
I mean, you texted me that video of the kid, another medic was just shot, so...
Yeah, there was something that Bilal Mohammed, who's one of the UFC fighters, had on his Instagram. And I texted you that.
Right.
It's so difficult to understand what's actually going on. There's so many pro-Israel people that put their head in the sand and don't want to look at some of these atrocities and don't want to look at some of the videos that you sent me of soldiers shooting at people that are not doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, their whole argument is that it's all Hamas and their human shields. I mean, we looked through hundreds of hours of footage that these people gave us, and it's mind-blowing footage. It looks absolutely cinematic and epic, but the footage is harrowing, and I didn't see one weapon. I didn't see one militant, not one weapon. It was literally people with slingshots throwing rocks at tanks. It's kind of a rite of passage. It's very symbolic. They're not trying to hurt anyone. No Israeli soldiers have been hurt or killed, during 2018. I mean, it's shocking how many war crimes were committed on camera. And it's just amazing the propaganda that's just told to us about what this is and why they have the right to kill people that pose no threat to them.
When you were on last time and you talked about this, one of my email accounts was flooded with literally a chain letter, with the same letter, like denouncing you and your lies and your anti-Semitic perspective and your anti-Israeli perspective. It was weird because it was the same email.
AstroTurfed, yeah, it was fake. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a campaign. You know that has a lot of money behind it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money behind that. Even if it were a war between armies, all of these things that Israel has done are still documented war crimes and very grievous violations of international law. And we're talking about direct targeting and assassinations by Israeli snipers of disabled people, of children,
medics.
press, and medics. And that's who Razan was. She was a medic, and as you mentioned, another medic just passed away, was killed, rather. I hate to use the passive voice because you always hear Palestinians died. No, they were murdered. They're all being murdered by snipers, and they pose no threat to them. Palestine has a right to defend itself, and this isn't even what that is. But if you look at the UN Charter of 1978, they say that, occupied peoples and besieged peoples have the right actually for armed self-defense. And the fact that this is not even what that is, that there's literally people going out there in peace with their bared chests, holding flags, and they're getting killed and sniped. There's so many amputations. I mean, just in 2018 alone, there was 35 kids who were killed. 900 shot.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's children. And some of these stories are harrowing. A kid hiding behind a trash can who was sniped, a kid who went up to the fence and just put a Palestinian flag and she was shot in the head and died instantly. It goes on and on and on. And so, we're just trying to document this to really kind of push the needle for accountability, because these laws have been agreed upon by the international community, some of them 100 years ago. And to have kind of a rogue state acting with complete impunity, knowing that it has total protection from the U.S. empire and given more freedom than ever under Trump with this Golan Heights thing, and the moving of the Jerusalem embassy, or the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem. I mean, it's it's abysmal and it needs to be stopped. And, they can't control the narrative any longer because we're seeing this with our own eyes.
How do you manage to maintain your sanity? Because I have a hard time if I just watch one of your pieces.
Right.
I watch one of your clips and I just go, what the fuck? And I just want to cry and I don't know what to do and I want to hug my kids. But you're in the trenches every day and you go to these places all the time. How do you do it?
I try to get out and see the beauty of the world and understand my privilege, especially as an American citizen, because we can't afford to not be aware and we can't afford to not be educated and talking about these issues, especially when our government is subsidizing this around the world, $10 million every day with our tax dollars. This is going on and it's so close to home. And we have to acknowledge our privilege and acknowledge the situation, which is we have agency. We have agency to lobby our government to change this and to stop these criminal acts.
This was an even more recent clip from over 6 years ago in April 2019. I think the last time Abby was on Joe Rogan was 2021, which I might react to in a later video, as that appearance was much more comprehensive and focusing solely on the Israel-Palestine issue. But an appearance by Abby Martin on Joe Rogan seems long overdue, given what has just happened in Gaza over the past couple of years. Like Joe and Abby, it is baffling to hear about medical professionals being killed by the Israelis. These people are healers, there to help the sick and injured. So to harm them is a level of depravity that doesn't even seem human. Joe was correct to call out the pro-Israel propagandists that condone and justify innocent Palestinians being killed. Abby also called out the cheap and lazy Israeli propaganda slogans such as blame Hamas for using human shields. Bear in mind this clip was recorded 3 years before October 7th, where the Israelis are using their same fake deflection tactics. Abby spoke about viewing hundreds of hours of harrowing footage of unarmed peaceful Palestinians and the war crimes committed against them, which include disabled people, kids, press and medics being killed, as well as numerous child amputees. I honestly don't know how she has a stomach for it. As Joe said, even just watching a limited amount of footage of what the Palestinians are enduring messes me up. Joe Rogan also surprisingly revealed how pro-Israel groups hounded and harassed him for previously platforming Abby, as well as launching a smear campaign against her for her outstanding journalism. Abby made another good point when she pointed out that even if Israel and Palestine were fighting a war, which they're not, as this is an ethnic cleansing, Israel would still be guilty of committing war crimes. Abby stated that over 900 kids were shot by the IDF in 2018, once again proving that this did not start on October 7th. Abby correctly labelled Israel as a rogue state that breaks century-old international laws with impunity due to the US government, and in particular Donald Trump backing them during his first term, the same way he's doing in his current term as president. Abby claimed the US is spending $10 million per day funding Israel through taxing American citizens. That is an absolutely insane amount of money. Think about what America would look like if they spent that on their own country instead of Israel. I have nothing but respect for Abby Martin for acknowledging her privilege, the same privilege we all have in the West, and for having the human decency to feel she has a responsibility to do the right thing by her fellow human beings, just like we all do. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, and remember to like, subscribe and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.